Today at the National Press Club, Aminata Conteh-Biger. Coming to Australia in 2000 as a refugee, Ms Conteh-Biger now works to improve maternal outcomes in Sierra Leone and is in Australia for UNHCR Special Representative. Aminata Conteh-Biger with today's Press Club address.
Good afternoon and welcome to the National Press Club Westpac address. My name is Emma MacDonald and I am the Canberra convener of Women in Media and the Associate Editor of Her Canberra. Today's speaker is Aminata Conteh-Biger. She's the founder and CEO of the Aminata Maternal Foundation. She's a Special Representative for Australia's United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and she's the author of a book, Rising Heart, on her quite incredible survival after being taken hostage during the brutal civil war in Sierra Leone. Her speech is entitled Restoring Dignity to Humanity, One Woman's Ultimate Purpose. If you would like to join the conversation online, please use the handle @PressClubAust or the hashtag MPC. At the conclusion of this address, Women in Media will pay a special tribute to our patron and national treasure, Caroline Jones. Please welcome Aminata to the podium.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you, everyone. I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owner of this land on which we walk in land and pay our respect to the First Nation people and their elders, past, present, and future. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to share with you all a piece of me, with this stunning nation that I and we all call home, Australia. I want to tell you my story. It's easy to forget the dignity we all live in this civilized society. Dignity, a human right that sits quietly, invincible in all of us. My story has a dark, secret truth, but it also has a spirit and light. Dark shows me the uncivilized humanity, human rights being brutally stripped away by our own kind. I tell you my story, and I know to you, no matter how dark in truth, I have never lost my dignity. When dignity is lost, indignity has a voice, a very loud voice, because in dignity we find hopelessness. Hopelessness leads to despair. Despair is inhuman. My story has given me an intimate, entitled relationship to dignity. Today, I feel compelled to tell you my story, but I want to ask your permission to share something with you so profoundly secret and uncomfortable. And I want to share this with you in a few minutes, so I need you to please step in wholeheartedly with me, stay with me, and trust me. The story goes, my grandfather called me Batagine, in a language Suso. Since the day my mother brought me from the hospital, and the name Batagine means strength of a woman. My grandfather was 107 years old when he died. He was brutally killed during the Civil War. The rebels left him for dead after they cut all of his toes. 107 years old. He had the most beautiful skin, and his voice echoes to the heavens and beyond. Batagine, strength of a woman, and dignity, a name that I never knew what it meant but I came to find out during the war. Picture this, 1999 in Freetown. 11 years of civil war, just at its end. At that stage, vicious killing and unthinkable cruelty was happening. Death all around. We could smell the dead body, people being burned. You cannot run away from the smell. Until this day, the smell follows you. Barely a teenager, a girl holding her father's hand tightly, his hand shaking uncontrollably, sick with Parkinson's disease. Thousands of civilians in an open field, the rebels holding guns, RPG, AK-47 bombs, waiting for us all to be killed. Asking civilians, do you want short sleeves or long sleeves? You get to choose your fate, how your hand can be amputated. One of the rebels looked at the girl. He said, come. The little girl walked towards the rebels and let go of her dad's hand and never looked back on his face. She never looked back because her father, she wanted for the first time to protect him. She feared if he dare fight back of what will happen to him. Either she will be raped in front of the father, they would ask to rape her, and of course, he will refuse. And so they will ask the little girl to shoot him. That was the only option. After several months of experience as a slave, sex slave, and a human shield, thousands of girls, we followed the rebels between guns, bombs coming through. We had no time to be fearful. Whenever we got the chance, I would ask my friend, we look at the stars. During those times, there were two things that sustained me: my faith in God's goodness and my Father's love. I refuse for these men to take everything my Father instilled in me since the day I was born. I remember looking at the stars as a satellite. And I would say, wow, I wonder if the stars were satellite and people were looking at us to come save us. Towards the end of my time with the rebels, I promised myself that if I survive, I will forgive. I will forgive the horror that has been done to my body, but not my spirit. I vowed to live my life fully and widely, like a white butterfly. I will fall in love with no boundaries, and I have. But more importantly, I will give back to humanity. That little girl is standing right in front of you here today. I look back, and now I know for sure no one was looking for me. No one was looking for us. Because people don't even know where Sierra Leone is, or even if it exists. We are all appalled by what is happening and sickened by what is happening in the Ukraine. We remember the Holocaust, the Jewish Holocaust. We elevate Malal, who was the girl that was shot for education. We celebrate their resilience, their spirit, their dignity, keeping them in our memories as part of human stories, rightfully so. But do we remember January 6, 1999? The day the rebels attacked the capital city, Freetown. We deserve, my people deserve to be remembered. We need to live in your memories. We need to build a better Sierra Leone. Thank you. I have never shared my story in this depth. I am a woman of color. I am an African Australian woman. I am a former refugee, a victim of sex slave and violence. I am a wife. I am a mother to two precious humans. I am now the CEO and the founder of the Aminata Maternal Foundation, an Australian non-for-profit to end infant maternal mortality in the country of Sierra Leone. I am also dyslexic, and I never thought in my wildest dream that I would co-write a book, Rising Heart, but I did. My story is not just about me, it's about millions of girls. We deserve to be dignified. I am a voice of millions of voiceless girls, unrepresented babies, and mothers dying pointless dead in Sierra Leone. And I'm here to tell you, if it feels impossible, nothing is. Everything about our collective human story makes the impossible possible. We have a responsibility. Despite what was done to me, despite it, I have never once lost my dignity. Never once. I chose to use my trauma for something good, to restore dignity to humanity and make sure no mother dies just because they are in Sierra Leone. The Aminata Maternal Foundation vision is make birth safe now and make birth safe for the future. Motherhood should mark a beginning and not the end. Imagine if motherhood, just imagine, if motherhood was marking an end. Would you be here? Would I be here? None of us would be alive. We all came out of a woman. We give birth. We bring life. No one can ever claim otherwise. I am running out of time. 2 weeks ago, the Washington Post wrote an article about Sierra Leone, and the heading was, where pregnancy is a deadly gamble. Sierra Leone is the most dangerous place for women to give birth. The most dangerous place. Thanks. 1 in 17 women die in childbirth, while in Australia it's 1 to 8,700. These are some of the facts and statistics. The country has 8 obstetricians in the same population of New South Wales. New South Wales have over 500, that's 60 times more. Sierra Leone has 1 in 10 children wouldn't get to see their 5th birthday. The highest teenage pregnancy in the world. I get to understood what dignity meant when I met Zainab with my SBS Dateline documentary in 2016. At the hospital, I met Zainab, and she was lying on a plastic. She had suffered from fistula. Zainab told the story with a soft, gentle voice. She had been in labor for 3 days while the village is raising money to get a motorcycle to buy petrol so they can get an ambulance. 5 days passed. A baby has been pounding, and the baby has died from pushing through that has broken between the birth canal and the vagina. Zainab is continuously urinating on herself. As I said, I never lost my dignity. Zainab's voice was, when I cook, my children refuse to eat my food because I smell. This is a woman that cannot even remove herself from the way she smells just because of giving birth. And I remember looking at Zainab. My father has always taught me when I walk in the room, I am the most important person in the room, despite what has happened to me. I have never walked into a room and feel less. But I was witnessing a woman in Sierra Leone feeling less than. I could feel her energy. And the beauty part is after 3 days, Zainab called my name. I could not recognize her face because her smile was so big. She didn't ask for nothing. She was happy that she was going to go back and see her family. She didn't ask for nothing because her dignity has been restored in 45 minutes by brilliant women in Sierra Leone. My vision cannot continue without sustainable giving. I need your help. I need the Australian community to come and support what we are doing. For how can I continue the work that we're doing at the Aminata Maternal Foundation? People say to me, you need to be at the seat at the table. As a black female woman, dyslexic, I have been offered a seat at the table. But most of the time, it felt tokenism and useless. Because a seat at the table for people who look like me does not mean that I get given the same resource and the same opportunity. To me, the truth meaning of inclusion feels we have to belong. We all want to belong, and that's what we all have in common. Representation matters. As a woman of color who is making remarkable change in human dignity, I don't want to be judged by my race or by my gender. I want to be judged by my character, my integrity, my values, my honesty, my consistency, and my life experience. Integrity, with integrity and character, I am going to be brave than I've ever been. I am asking you to choose me. I am asking you to call on your sense of dignity, your sense of humanity, to choose the Aminata Maternal Foundation. We need help to do what we're doing. We need sustainable giving to provide for mothers and babies the best health care. Secondly, we need contact. We need relationship building, particularly corporate sponsorship and philanthropic. Diverse budgets, workplace giving in government, mining companies. Who knows what is happening in Sierra Leone when you've seen the movie Blood Diamonds? We need them to pay it forward. Particularly, we need doctors. The country lost their medical infrastructure during the Ebola. We need doctors. Sierra Leone has done it before. But by having obstetricians and doctors and midwives and resources, we can rebuild a better Sierra Leone. We need pro bono services. I need you to buy my book and spread the words and share it. To the press, I want you to tell stories to end infant and undignified maternal mortality. In Sierra Leone, every day, 8 women would die because of maternal health issue. 8 women, that's 3,000 per year. In Australia, it's 15 women per year. This can be done. Just imagine. This is undignified. Aminata Maternal Foundation has the solution. We work with women in Sierra Leone. We work with our partners. We work with the community. But without that, without the right resources and sustainable giving, we cannot provide the resources that we need for these women. I cannot do this alone. So I am asking you again to spread the word beyond, to choose me, to choose the Aminata Maternal Foundation, so that no mother or baby die in Sierra Leone. Don't choose me because you feel sorry for me or because of my story. Choose me because you're inspired to take action and serve human dignity. Let's restore dignity to mothers and babies in Sierra Leone. I call on your sense of justice and your sense of social duty. As you've heard my story today, I have gone through hell to stand in glory. And sometimes I marvel at myself, what it takes for me to be here or for me to survive. I am asking you to stand in glory with me today so we can end this. Because together, we are birthing human. We give lives. This is not an African issue. This is not a Sierra Leone issue. We've learned from COVID. This is a universal issue. Let this not be the last place you hear about the Aminata Foundation work. The women of Sierra Leone are capable. The people of Sierra Leone are capable than the West give them credit for. So remember that when you want to support. As I say again, as I stand in glory, I'm asking you all, my fellow Australian, to stand with me in glory so that we can help mothers and babies and the countless dead that is happening. Thank you so much. It has truly been an honor. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That was an incredible speech, Aminata. We're going to now go to questions from the press, and our first question is from a very special guest here today. She's the winner of the Caroline Jones Women in Media Young Journalists Award, Brooke Littlewood, and she will ask your first question.
Brooke Littlewood, WA's largest rural selling newspaper, Farm Weekly. Before I ask my question, I'd like to thank Women in Media, the National Press Club, and of course Caroline Jones for this award. Aminata, in Rising Heart, you wrote about a time your teacher, Mrs. Harper, and your school principal organised for you to see a counsellor. You mentioned the cultural divide, how you felt like you were unable to open up, and that there was little understanding as to what life was like in Australia for a refugee from Sierra Leone. There were also parts where you spoke about feelings of loneliness, isolation, when you first moved here. Reading this made me wonder, what can we do as Australians? And also, do you think there is a need for more culturally sensitive services, including trauma-centred services, for refugees in Australia?
I believe a great place to start is really seeing refugees as human, because we are human. We are not or they are not their condition or their situation. It is the circumstances that happen. But I think also where Australian, what they don't realize is what they can gain from refugees. We are not helpless. They are not helpless. They've come through a depth of trauma, which I can now call trauma because I didn't understand what it was. But I think for me to have people that sees me as a human first, that's the most important part. And I think there is so much more Australian can do towards that. Yeah.
Thank you. Aminata, the Press Club and its viewing audience has had a rather heavy schedule of politicians on its agenda for the last few weeks, and bless them, it's actually really good to see a face that is not a political face. But I do want to ask you a political question.
Okay.
How do you feel about the new makeup of our new parliament and the representation of women that will be coming in?
Well, as I said before, representation does matter. It is when we see each other and when we know and have a leader that has empathy and respect. I think that's, again, the call for humanity, and that's what has led to the election appointing of Mr. Anthony, the Prime Minister. And I think we don't just have to stop here. I think that's the mistakes that we do. We fight and we get to a place and we have to wait for the next couple of years again for election. We have to continue to do the work. The work is mostly the foundation underneath, not just the noise. We have to make sure that the representation is not just superficial or just having women or just having all diverse, but the work continues so that the next generation will get better. You know, we don't want in the next 4 years again or having the same statistics of abuse or women's rights or human rights in general. So we do have a lot of work to do, even though we've got a result that I believe the nation wanted. I think that's where, that's where we have to do more work. We have to roll our sleeves as women, as men in. We have to bring them into this conversation. I am standing here today because of what my father instilled in me. So there is no way we can do what we do without having men in the conversation and in the table to make real change. Because living in this world, we are both men and women, so there's no other option. So I think, yeah, so that's what I would say. Let's do the work more and let's not relax. So, yeah.
Our next question is Kathleen Calderwood from the ABC.
Hi, Aminata. I'm Kathleen from the ABC. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. There's so much power in doing that, even when it is difficult and upsetting. I remember seeing you at the Women's March here a bit over a year ago. I wondered if you could reflect on what you think has changed since so many people marched for justice, and what you think still needs to change to have the stories of women of colour and refugee women heard and believed in the same way that we've seen the stories of white women heard and believed?
Firstly, I think women, we have to realize that we have a voice. We do have a voice. There's no permission needed for that. And we did, 2 years ago, did that here. I think what, for me, I wanted to see change is to have pure diverse, not only when a conversation is happening or when there's a publicity. And I think for me, that's what I feel a bit left out about, that the conversation that's happening, Australia is a country that's full of multicultural. It's not only white people that should be telling stories. It should be women with hijab, Asian, people of color, different sex, you know? So as much as that match meant so much to me, and as I addressed before, one thing that I'm very conscious about is, and we should be conscious about, is not just that moment that we should be waiting for the next year, like International Women's Day, to have a different trend all the time or the hashtag. I really, truly feel like that's a superficial and very distraction from what needs to be done and the question that need to be addressed and the uncomfortable question. Because when I get to a table where people feel uncomfortable and I look at myself, well, I'm living the uncomfortableness. So for you, it's nothing. Let's get it done. And we think about diversity in the workforce. Let's not just have a picture. Don't just hire a black woman because you want a black woman or Asian woman and then tick the box. When I speak around that, I know when I talk about my foundation, I get the nice and the inspirational and the wow, but I don't get the same what as when a white woman has a charity helping Africa. We need to have this conversation so we're making change, not just work for justice, but it's everywhere. So for me, I live that and I breathe that, and that's the battle that I go through every day. Why can't you give me the same opportunity or the same resource you give to World Vision, you give to any big organization? Because I am doing remarkable. I don't want the praises. I just want the resource. So the resource for everyone when it comes to really providing the best. If I don't see somebody that look like me in the March for Justice, I don't see it in the commercial. Asian people don't see it. Gay people don't see it. What are they going to feel like? So we're causing more damage than good. So we need to question. So that's where I want to be, where I question the uncomfortable decision that's been made.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aminata, the issue of maternal mortality, it is the worst in Sierra Leone, the worst in the world, but it's also terrible around the world, in the developing world. One woman will die somewhere in the world every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, one woman will die. And in Sierra Leone, that time frame shrinks down to every 90 seconds. Why do you think we've got to 2022 and women are still allowed to die in childbirth? Almost 300,000 women a year lost in childbirth. Why aren't we up in arms about that?
I think the question of why is being so civilized in the Western world and where I live in Australia, the African problem and Sierra Leone issue is not our issue. And we've seen that in wartime, as I spoke before. We've seen that in even providing resources for countries during COVID. And the question is, the answer is so, sometimes I feel it's so hurtful because I truly believe it's because we are looked at less than. We are not as valued as people in the West or as a white person. That is just a straight talk. It's really that. Because when we look at maternal health, war, what is happening in Ukraine, well, should have been prevented. But maternal health is preventable. You know, we can do something about it. It's something that can be fixed. It's not a disease. It doesn't need research. It's simply as that. We want to fix climate change. We want to fix so many things. But we're talking about life. It's so simple. How can you not fix life before fixing that? We exist because of that. So again, we are in Australia fighting climate change, and we should rightfully so. While climate change is the last thing in Africa's mind. It's the same here when we talk about violence, when we talk about, I didn't understand women's rights, where I'm a black woman fighting for rights first to be seen before I get to getting paid for that. So there is that priority that is so shifted that what is happening in Africa just stays in Africa. And COVID has proven that that should not be the case. Because for the first time, we're all in the same boat, where some have different boats. But I think that's where we need to take responsibility for each other as a planet, as a world. Because when we fix that, then we collectively can fix the world. Even Africa can fix the climate change if we value their lives. You know, if we value who they are and we see them as us. So I think that's where, for me, I want to put that shift for especially because I'm an African Australian. I want to shift that mindset that we're more alike than we're unalike. And let's do something about this because we can. And I can't do it alone. So, yeah.
You're right, though, it is fixable, and it's not even that expensive to fix, is it, comparatively speaking? Can you tell us some of the things that your foundation is actually doing on the ground in Sierra Leone so people can have an idea of how you're actually assisting and saving lives?
One of the things that when we started the organization, we started was teenage pregnancy. With Ebola, when Ebola came and just break the whole infrastructure, the girls could not go to school. So the teenage pregnancy went to 66.6% because there was no school happening and they were bored and they have sex and they have babies. I'm telling you, girls between 10 years old, I have met. And we take these girls, they've been thrown in the slum, they're not home anymore, they're sleeping in the streets, and we take them back and look into educational system, providing them, putting them back at school, providing job for them, and teaching them part of their body, what that means, because most of the girls do not know where baby come from, do not know they're pregnant until their breasts start coming out. And we talk about the midwife. There is less than 50% of the capacity Sierra Leone need. Sierra Leone need about 3,000 midwives, 3,500 midwives. They have less than 800 midwives. So we do midwife training. We work closely with the government. But more importantly, the women the nurses and the midwife that we have at the Aberdeen Women's Center, the center that we partner with, 96% of the staff are Sierra Leonean. What I'm interested in is building an Africa that no longer need the West. That no longer sitting down for the West to go, okay, let's raise money for Africa. I want to build a Sierra Leone like that. I want to build an African like that. So we employ the people of the country to do the job themselves. So and then we do midwife training. And we do a lot of educational program because we all know without education, nothing really sustained. And yeah, those are some of the works. And we also, the hospital that we partner with, we're the only hospital that does the fistula operation. But everything that is done in this hospital is completely free. Completely free. So this is why, again, sustainable giving and helping the foundation to be able to provide the right resources is so core, because we cannot continue to provide free healthcare, free services, without paying and providing the services that they need.
Our next question is Nick Stewart from the Canberra Times.
Thank you so much for such a powerful speech, and also your SBS documentary, the work that you've done with that. You've really reached out. When you began, you talked about the light that you saw here, and also the dark heart. When you look at Australia, and I know your story is about Africa, but when you look here, what do you think the dark heart of Australia that we are not looking at is? What are we ignoring and trying to pretend doesn't happen so that we can say we're all marvellous? We're a wonderful country. What do we need to reflect on ourselves?
Well, I think that your question really penetrates to my topic of human dignity. It's seeing us as you. If you look at me and you see me as you would want to help. And I think that's where Australia is now. They're the most, I think, I've been in Australia for 22 years. Love this country, and I've created a wonderful life here. But I think that uncomfortable conversation into really, this is our responsibility as a world. Sierra Leone didn't just pop up. It's been colonized by the British. You know, there's so much history that should make us feel a sense of responsibility for one another. And I think the responsibility is where people don't want to go, because when you feel responsible, then you feel empowered to do something. And I think for me, that's where I really want to stand in my place in Australia, saying that we are responsible for what is happening everywhere around the world. I'm not saying for mothers and babies dying. Yes, we do have a government, but look at the history. When I get to hear people say Africa is still poor, learn the history before you even quote that. You know, learn the involvement in the Western world in Africa. Then you will know that it's not really poor. It is one of the richest countries, but what has been done to it? And then when we get to see that and have this conversation, then we are able to see the light. Because the darkness is where we want to stay. We want to say, but I've been supporting Africa for such a long time. And that's the feel good, you know? But a lot of the resources you will be getting, you're getting in your country is coming from Africa. But we don't want to see that because we don't want to face the truth. I'm not a political person, but that's just a common sense. And it's there that has been put on Google by white people. So read it and learn about it. And even before you support my foundation, before you take it beyond, learn about the country. I'm not just saying giving the money. Learn about it because that will inspire you to give sustainably, not just giving a one-off, because that doesn't sustain what I'm doing. It really doesn't. I have the most exceptional board. I have had the most greatest support from people that I know that love me, but it needs to go beyond to the nation now to do what the foundation does.
That's a little bit uncomfortable. I was just going to pat myself on the back.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Kath Webber from WIM.
Kath Webber, Women in Media. Aminata, thank you for a remarkable address and some really shocking statistics. A few months ago, we saw a certain tennis player fly into the country, and there was uproar about some people that were staying in a similar area. Have you got any thoughts around, now that there's been a change of government, around policy for refugees and how we treat them?
Well, when it comes to refugee, again, the reason why I brought story like the Holocaust and all the things that have happened around the world, we saw when things happened in the Ukraine, the attention the media took on. Everybody knows about Ukraine. Even my son in year 3 talks about the Ukraine. And I think that's the unfairness that have happened in some part of the world, where others, Afghanistan refugees and refugees from in Darfur, Chad, the Sudanese refugees, the remarkable work that the UNHCR is trying to do with people in camps who have been there for 10 years. And then when you see a story like that, and I think that's the uncomfortable conversation that white people don't want to have, the privilege. It's just simply a privilege. You look like me, then I can help you. We saw that again during the Ukraine when they were pushing the African Ukrainian for taking on. And we don't want to address it. Again, as I said, when you address that, you see yourself like, we've made this, we've created the system. And it's just when one is privileged like him, he gets what he gets, all the attention was on him, not what was happening. It shifts, and I think that's where the media has a responsibility. Yes, the story like that, some stories can be maybe boring for others, but they're important because they involve lives than just focusing on one. And I think there's a way that we can tell story like a tennis player who came in, and there's a way we can shift that and go like, what result do we want? Instead of making the noise, but not getting results for the refugees that are in camp, that are not able to see their family members. And I really call on media, because we're feeding by them, to really take that responsibility seriously, because these are lives. They are lives. So, yeah.
Thank you.
The next question is from Amanda Whitley from Her Canberra.
Thanks, Aminata, for an amazing address. While I was listening to you, I couldn't help but think of my children who are 13 and 15 and thinking just how incredibly different your experience as a child is to ours. But it also made me reflect on how I think today's teens really see themselves as global citizens, and they're so socially conscious. And I wondered if that gives you hope for the future.
Well, I will always have hope. I think that's why I'm standing here today. I'm one person that believes that 10,000 people will say no, but the one I will hold on to. I'll continue to have hope because I truly believe we all want to have a better world. I really believe that. but we just got to deeper and really not just get the rating that we want for our television, for what we do, for our company to look magnificent. We have to be able to get our hands dirty and get the conversation. So there is hope. There's hope in every one of us, not just the generation that are coming. Because without us being here, how this is going to go to them? How? So we can't just say, oh, the generation are the hope. We have to continue to build that because we have so much insight and so much power and so much influence. We can't just put it on them. You know, we have brought the world the way it is. They didn't do it. My child didn't do it. Your child didn't do it. We did it. So let's take responsibility for that and really try to make a better change so they can carry on that. But I think it's unfair when people say that to 13 years old and my daughter is turning 10, they're learning little things when we have so much knowledge and wisdom. But also, we know the truth. But we don't want to face the truth because the truth calls on responsibility. And we don't want to take responsibility for anything that doesn't affect us, affect the other world. And that's why, again, we cheerfully donate monthly, you know? But you don't want to be the person that just donates. Spread it around, talk about it, take it from here beyond. And that's what I'm hoping for with the press, because there's so much material about the foundation, what we do. But I really am calling on the nation to take it beyond, because it can be done. But the responsibility is ours, not just them. And I always have hope until the day I take my last breath. So, yeah.
Our next question is from Claudine Ryan from the ABC.
Hi, Aminata. Again, thank you for your speech today. It was so moving and we really appreciate you bringing it to us. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you've talked really beautifully about your father and the values and whatnot that he instilled in you. And I'm curious to know, what are the kind of values that you think we should be instilling in our own children, the next generation, and how they can create a better world and a brighter future?
Oh, I think the one thing that I believe that we could almost, no one can take away from us is dignity, is integrity. I remember my father would say to me, integrity is not about what people know or what they see you doing. It's about what you know. And we need to really know and understand what true integrity means, because a lot of these words are so thrown away. You know, they're thrown away because they're beautifully said, and it makes people feel warm and fuzzy. But we really have to know, am I really that person at work, in my workplace, when nobody's watching, when nobody's seeing what I'm doing, nobody is hearing, am I really standing through to that? Because that, I believe, is the passport to anything that you do in life, whatever success we are creating. And I think that's why we're surrounded by so many people, but we're lonely because we betray our own integrity. We all have it in us, but we betray it. And I think we need to regain that. And that's what we can pass on, because if anybody is a parent here or friend, your children don't learn by what you say. They learn by what you do and how they see you live your life. So for me, nothing comes beyond that, because when you have integrity, you really truly understand understand what true freedom means. If you're free of the mind, because we do live in a free world, we all say that, but we're not really free. But when you're free of the mind, you find peace, and that's priceless. And a lot of people in the world, we have a lot of material things, but we don't have peace because we don't have the sense of integrity. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Next question is from Hannah Head from Women in Media.
Thank you so much for your incredible address today. I'm Hannah Head and I'm from Women in Media. For those who have been inspired by your address, what is some practical advice to individuals who want to make change but feel too small to do so?
Oh, I think the advice is, look at me. I can't go any further. Like people ask me, I've been asked many times in interview, and interview who is your role model. I am my own role model. I set up a foundation. I am my own role model because I set up a foundation. I am dyslexic. I have no money on Centrelink, in Housing Commission. And a lot of people said, you cannot do it. But you know what I heard? That's what they tell themselves. But most of those people are the one helping me now today. I didn't take it personal. So I think really, when it comes to inspiring, if you can't inspire yourself, how can you inspire others? And no amount is that small, because if I can create something with the Aminata Maternal Foundation, with people that believed, few people that believe in the vision, that we've done remarkably well. I can really say that because we're all amazed at UNSW sitting in a room and just having conversation. We have helped thousands of mothers and babies. That's not what I thought I would see. So we have to take off that guilt. Because a guilt, again, makes you not to take responsibility. It's not about how much you have. It's about the desire that you want to contribute. Because even if you can't do it, you will know somebody else that wants to do it. It's really that simple for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final question, I believe, is from Astrid Watts from Journability News.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, Aminata. First of all, I just want to say, Emma, thank you for organising the tribute to Caroline. I was mentored by her and she will be missed unammountably from me. And Aminata, my question is, what advice would you give to disabled people, to non-binary, gender fluid, transgender communities to step into their own powers? You speak a lot about your own power and how to embrace it. And my question to you is, how would you advise others to do that?
I think it's hard when you are being looked differently. It is simply hard. But there is power in one. And for me, that power was finding a family that really saw me and believed in me. My spiritual dad, my mom and Michael and Janelle, who I call my parents, are here. I met them when I just arrived in Australia. And in 2000, and they saw me. Despite if nobody else could, if you find that one person, there's really power in one. And the others, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. You can acknowledge that hurt, but also know you have the choice to follow that one path. And that really, truly, for them to be here today, truly has enabled me to be the woman that I am today, to craft me in this stage in Australia. That has really helped me. So I know it's simply as it's said, but it's really knowing that you have a choice to choose who you want in your life and who you can really gracefully step away from. It is challenging because I know I'm dyslexic and that can be called disability, but we can all do it. We see the Paralympics people doing it, so it can be done. And just find that one, because that one will become millions and thousands. And yeah, take one person that see you and all shall be well. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Going to sneak in. We're going to sneak in another question from Morris.
Yeah, Aminata, thank you so much for being here. Very powerful speech. Thank you so much. Some years ago, we had Barry Kirby, who was, an advocate in Papua New Guinea for similar issues about maternal health. But what we did learn from him was that a little money went a long way. Yeah. I just wonder, perhaps you could give us a scale of, what does $100 do compared to what $100 do here, which is not much anymore with inflation. But I'm just sort of curious what sort of values of money will actually make a significant difference in Sierra Leone. So to give you just a picture, the hospital that we partner with, that we work with, we deliver 3,000 babies every year. So we keep the babies safe, but also include the mothers.
That hospital, the cost, overhead cost of that is 1.5 million. Now, that is what you can probably buy equipment here in Australia. But also, $35, you can take 5 children to see a GP monthly. A midwife salary, and this, I almost, every time I hear this, just make me choked. A midwife salary, monthly salary, is $209. A monthly salary. That you can actually pay for a midwife to have that. If you, just when you're sitting, even if you're not a mom or anyone, just think about how much a midwife is paid here in Australia. So this is going a long way, but they're keeping this mother safe and they're keeping the baby safe. And the Zainab story that I told around fistula, when a woman, the pelvic, the vagina has been so destroyed, 2,500 can really restore that. And people might say, oh, every time you go to 2,500, that's a woman standing constantly urinating. And most of the time they have to send to the bush. Their family do not want to be ashamed because of the smell. So there's, in our website, when you go to our website, all those little dollars make so much difference. And it does. I understand what your dear friend said. It makes so much. It makes these women who will never go to a hospital to have normal checkup, that will stay home, are able to go and have a safe baby. Have a safe child and really not die for something from a shortage of blood. If you have the time to read the article that the Washington Post did 2 weeks ago, people have to go look for their own blood supplies, have to get their own blood supplies to take to the hospital. That's how bad it is. But that all can be solved because they're in the hospital, they're able to go.
I don't think I heard you mention the website address.
Oh, yes. True. Well, there's a brochure outside, but it's Aminata Maternal Foundation.org. Please check it out and please spread the word beyond. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Victoria Laurie to the stage. She's the co-patron of Women in Media, a job that she did with Caroline Jones. She's going to pay respects to our Caroline.
Thank you, Aminata. First of all, today's National Press Club event epitomises all the things that Caroline Jones loved, all the things she stood for in life. Courageous women like Aminata Conteh-Biger, support for women in need, and mentoring of women making their career in the industry that she loved. Caroline was due to be here today as National Co-Patron of Women in Media, the not-for-profit organisation that grew into a national body in 2013 to support and empower women working across our sector. We couldn't have wished for a better national ambassador and role model. Caroline made history in Australian journalism, becoming the first woman among male reporters on the ABC programme This Day Tonight, and then becoming Australian TV's first female anchor for a current affairs programme on Four Corners. In a Women in Media interview she did some years later, she laughed about what she nevertheless described as outrageous newspaper headlines at the time about her appointment. Headlines that read, "Girl will take over Four Corners." Yet she also knew how important the symbolism of her success was, and how her credibility and stature could help elevate others. And she said, "I hoped that would open the door for other women, and if it did, I'm very happy." Caroline's distinguished career, mainly with the ABC, lasted more than 50 years, until 2016, when she retired from her anchor role with ABC TV's Australian Story. Incredible longevity in a fast-changing media sector. She set very high standards both in her own fiercely intelligent reporting and presenting on TV, but also her warm, incisive interviewing style on radio, such as her groundbreaking Search for Meaning programs on Radio National. She won a Logie, a Walkley Award, 3 gold citations for the Australian Media Peace Prize, a place in the Australian Media Hall of Fame, and an Order of Australia, and I could go on. Caroline had something precious, an uncanny ability to inspire confidence in the people she met. There are literally hundreds of women in all corners of our media industry who would say, "I only half believed I could do it until Caroline convinced me I could." Her favourite quote was, "There's a special place in heaven for women who help other women." And in that spirit, she took a hand in helping manage every aspect of an award set up in 2017 in proud partnership with the National Press Club. It is the Caroline Jones Women in Media Young Journalists Award, whose latest winner, Brooke Littlewood, is here today. And it was conceived by Canberra's Women in Media convener, Emma MacDonald, as a way to open the doors to Parliament for young, rural and regional female journalists who would otherwise not have access. Perhaps because of her own country upbringing, Caroline particularly cherished this award, responding personally to almost every entrant each year, selecting those she felt deserved just that little bit of encouragement and sending them words of wisdom, guiding her fellow judges to understand some of the personal circumstances facing each applicant, and finally settling on a winner. Always in her impeccably fair, gracious and good-humoured way. Caroline absolutely loved these National Press Club addresses, and she'd sit proudly at the table beside each of the winners, whom she would have helped craft their first Press Club question ahead of time. So finally, I come back to the poignant nature of today's Press Club event as having the ingredients of a perfect tribute to Caroline Jones AM, because it celebrates a courageous woman, Aminata. It celebrates a young woman in the early stages of her career, Brooke. And sadly now, it celebrates the memory of one of Australia's great broadcast journalists and a wonderful human being, Caroline Jones.
Hello, I'm Caroline Jones.
She was the familiar face ABC viewers tuned into every week on Australian Story.
What sort of society do we end up with?
With a career spanning more than 5 decades, Caroline Jones was well respected for her hard-hitting journalism.
No help for some of the most helpless in our society later in the program.
Caroline Jones grew up in the tiny New South Wales country town of Murrurundi, the granddaughter of a newspaper editor. She joined the ABC in Canberra in 1963, before becoming the first female reporter on the current affairs TV program This Day Tonight.
I thought, now if I do it well, hopefully it'll open the door for other women. Because when I started in the mid-1960s, there were so few women in this business.
Stand by now for a new edition of Four Corners.
Jones continued to break new ground in the early 70s, joining the ABC's flagship program Four Corners as its first female anchor. It was an appointment that made headlines.
I think it was a columnist in the Daily Telegraph, and he felt moved to confess the Jones girl does not particularly appeal to me as a sex symbol. So, I was mortified, really.
After 9 years at Four Corners, Jones enjoyed a lengthy career in radio before joining Australian Story in 1996, a role she held until her retirement 20 years later. She won numerous awards for her work.
Congratulations, Caroline Jones.
And was made an Officer of the Order of Australia.
She could do fantastic presenting. She was a fabulous presenter for years on Australian Story. But I think the thing that a lot of us remember is how good she was to other people.
Caroline Jones died this week after a fall at her Sydney home.
I always say she wasn't a trailblazer, she was the trailblazer for women in serious journalism.
A legacy that's helped pave the way for women in Australian media.